So, a pleasant afternoon to all of us. Our group will present to you an issue on biodiversity and healthy society, which is the overfishing. Next, please. We often complain about our country being poor, but do we know the Philippines is rich in biodiversity? But before we start this discussion, let us first define what is the meaning of biodiversity. When we say biodiversity, it is the abundance of different living species. So, in a simple explanation, from the word itself, bio means life, and diversity means variety. Therefore, we come up with this meaning of biodiversity, which is the biological variety of life on Earth, like plants, animals, rivers, seas, ponds, etc. Next, please. So, let us now proceed to the main issue of our discussion, which is the overfishing. Philippines is one of the richest countries in terms of marine biodiversity. Around 36,000 kilometers of coast, 30,000 square kilometers of coral reefs, 97,800 hectares of seagrass, 500 coral species, and approximately 915 reef fish species. So we all know that uh, we all know the fact that most of the coral or most of the coastal communities uh, uh, depend on marine resources for their livelihood. Just like here in our barangay, as we are near to a river, so the main livelihood of people here is fishing, and they use as their equipment to catch fish, which is what we call a lambat in Tagalog. So, hindi na bago sa atin yung ganitong klasing pamumuhay na meron ang mga Pilipino, wherein hindi naman talagang wherein sa lawak ng population or ng coastal area na meron ng ating bansa. Next, please. So, nandito na po tayo ngayon sa main issue ng aming discussion, which is overfishing. So, ano nga ba yung tinatawag nilang overfishing? When we say overfishing, it is the catching of fish from the sea at rates too high. So, masasabi lang natin na overfishing ang way ng kanilang pangunawa is if yung total na nakukuha is mas mataas sa population na meron yung meron ng population yung fish sa marine. So, based on the Philippine Statistics Authority, on that was reported on 2018, our country is one of the top fish producers in the world, around 4.35 million metric tons of fish. So, imagine ganyang karaming isda ang nahuli within a year. So, and I believe it is really a major concern right now. Next, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My topic is about cause of overfishing. First is fishing areas are largely unprotected. We all know that Philippines have hindi sa, kulang sa kakayahan para i-monitor lahat ng mga um, mga dagat na nasa within the area of Philippines like yung Philippine Sea dahil sa kakulangan ng mga hindi kayang i-accommodate ng Philippines na protektahan lahat ng mga dagat kasi na part ng Philippines kasi kulang nga sa mga taga-pangalaga. Next slide po. Unreported fishing. Um, Unreported fishing is yung may mga yung may mga companies na hindi sumusunod sa laws ng law of fisheries kaya hindi sila kasali sa pangingisda, which is minsan nalalabag nila kung yung standard na kailangan nilang i-meet is nalalagpasan nila. Sumosobra sila sa yung sumosobra yung napoproduce nila sa kailangan lang na hulihin. Next slide. Lack of knowledge regarding fish population and quotas in a universal standards. Some fishermen, they don't have background and knowledge about the law of fishing. Kasi most of them, they are not attending seminars na napro-provide minsan sa mga barangays minsan or sa government. Yun lang po.
Okay, the next is the some threats that might happen when overfishing is occur. So the issue of overfishing is the greatest threat to ocean's ecosystems today. Overfishing occurs when fish are netted at a more rapid rate than they can reproduce. Some reasons that have led to overfishing are advanced fishing technologies, increased demand for fish, and illegal fishing. Overfishing can have detrimental and long lasting impacts on the ocean, as well as society and human consumption, such as first, poor coral reef health. With a larger amount of smaller marine creatures comes greater damage to coral reef and other elements of the ocean's ecosystem. Reefs are essential to ocean life, and once they are harmed, it is hard to repair the damage. Second, unintended catches. Another concern of overfishing is that because the industry is so large, there are a number of sea creatures who get caught in the process, but don't get used for food. This can be mean everything from dolphins to turtles can be impacted by the presence of overfishing. Third, next slide, the threat to local food sources. There are a large number of communities around the world that rely on fish as their primary resource for food. The growth of overfishing has caused a serious threat to these communities, which are often located in developing countries. Without the ability to catch their food, their populations are threatened. Fourth, financial losses. A lot of communities rely on fish for food, also rely on low-level fishing industries for economic viability. These enterprises, as opposed to large-scale fishing ones, typically do far less damage to their marine life because they are on a much smaller scale. However, when these communities can't access food or their financial support, they are likely to have trouble in the future. Next, rise of endangered species. We must remember that with the rise of the targeted species, another category of species grows too. These are the untargeted species that soon turn into endangered species. This happens because of the prevailing ecological imbalance and also proper efforts are not put in place to increase their population in water body. Okay, next.
So next is technological advances in fishing industry. The technological advances these days allow innovative monitoring equipment to be attached to traditional sampling gear and collect more data in fishing industry. As the diffusion and use of new technologies increase the cost of monitoring, surveillance, and control at sea, data collection, storage, and processing on activities and marine ecosystems continues to decline drastically. However, the wider use of these new technologies is still often limited by the cost of satellite imagery and equipment for smaller vessels, gaps in the interoperability of data sharing software and hardware, and limited by the number of individuals adequately trained to use these tools. In addition, as fisheries management becomes more holistic, data requirements and analysis become increasingly complex. Some examples of technological advances in fishing industry. First, big data. The big data technologies for monitoring of fisheries facing tremendous increase of data for fisheries monitoring, control, and surveillance. The big data can help in sorting out data coming from new technological tools. Today, data is created and processed on the cloud and displayed in near real time on mobile devices. Second example is blockchain. A blockchain is a continuously growing list of records called blocks, which are linked and secured using cryptography. Each block typically contains a hash pointer as a link to a previous block, a timestamp, and transaction data. By design, blockchains are inherently resistant to modification of the data. Next slide. Third, smart weighing at sea. Large fishing vessels currently use motion compensated weighting system at sea in order to directly measure and store raw weight of the catch. The boat's movement at sea does not allow determining the exact weight of the catch. Thus, the smart weighing system at sea calculates the weight of catches while taking into account boat's movement. Data is then regularly sent to fish market and ports by satellite support to update landing forecast. Fourth is smartphones for monitoring. Using smartphones with transceivers to collect data from fishing vessels and transmit this data to satellite operator to feed customers' database. Such data is then available to be used for monitoring information. The owner of a fishing vessel can now monitor it without even being aboard. Some satellite operators provide software which shows vessel location, estimated time of arrival, or the courses over the last 24 hours. This is done without a direct connection to the satellite. So these are some examples of technological advances in fishing industry. However, the wider use of these technologies is still limited by their cost, increasingly complex data requirements, challenges in sharing such data among fisheries management authorities, and the limited numbers of individuals trained to use these tools.
So we prepared some solutions to overfishing. So the first one is educating retailers. Why do we have to educate the retailers? Or why do retailers needs to be educated in terms of overfishing? So for them to know the ways to purchase their seafood from sustainable fisheries. And through this matter, may possibility na nasusunod yung mga ibang retailers sa standards na i-comply sa bawat fisheries dito sa ating bansa. Next one is more protected marine areas. It is much needed because setting up more protected areas in the ocean is an effort to help reduce the effects of overfishing on some of the world's most incredible reefs and marine structures. Yung goal nito is to protect marine life in order to avoid species become endangered. So, yun.
So, and that's it for our discussion. And thank you for those who listen to this discussion. And again, a pleasant afternoon.